Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we have our really janky HLS here, ready to go out to the moon. And we need to just do that at this point. So let's set the moon as our target, and we are going to grab our orbit about here or so, and we'll just push that right on out and get ourselves a nice, probably retrograde orbit of the moon. I think I want to do this whole thing retrograde. So we're going to bring this to about here or so. Although that is at a pretty jaunty inclination. We really want this inclination to be pretty even. So I think we're going to have to do an inclination change here. We are at a small inclination right now. Let's clear this out. Let's see. We need this to be in a proper orbit, right? So the ascending node here is 0.8 degrees. Let's add in a maneuver here, and let's just correct that up. So that's going to be this direction? Yeah, right about like that. It's very sensitive, but this is probably close enough, all things considered. Ooh. It goes very quickly. Okay, there we go. Something around like that. So that'll be fine. Our HLS is, at this point, functionally, like, it's complete, right? We just need to get it into position, and we need to do some fuel testing. So that'll be okay. We have burned a lot of our fuel to get ourselves into orbit, but this is not a huge concern. So we're just going to align for this burn here. And this burn will be commencing shortly. I have no concerns about the Starship at this point. If we didn't have heating issues before, we're not going to now. So this is absolutely fine, and yeah, it looks janky, no doubt about it, but it'll do. It will do. So 1 minute, and we're going to be launching this in about 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Only about a 4-second burn here. That's good enough. Okay, so that should do the trick. We're now at a 0-degree ascension. So now we're going to add our maneuver sometime around here or so. And let's bring this around to a retrograde orbit. Where would we be for retrograde? Well, we're going to need a little bit more prograde here. And now we can get ourselves into a nice retrograde. So I think we want to target around 200 kilometers. This is still not... Well, it's pretty close in the inclination. Okay, let's bring this to 200 kilometers. Ooh, timing? It's going to have to be timing. You know what? It doesn't actually matter on this particular launch because we're going to be landing. And then we're going to be lifting off again, and we can target 200 for that. So let's target about 250 here. That'll be a slightly different target. I think it'll be slightly more fuel, but that's fine. We've got more than enough fuel to land and take off again, and we're hoping that we have a decent amount of refuel from the SLS. I think we should. Okay, so we're just going to warp on forward here. This will be starting in about 7 minutes. There we go. And this is just our demonstration flight of the HLS system. We are not going to have an Orion capsule meeting it just yet, but we're going to put this in orbit. This will be, in theory, our final lander, assuming this all works just fine. So, commencing our burn to the moon. We're going to physics warp this burn. There we go. And we've got about 600 meters per second to go here. We'll have almost 3,000 meters per second once we arrive at the moon. So that'll be pretty decent. We'll need to burn a couple hundred in order to circularize, I think, and then it'll be... I usually target, I think, like 800 for a landing and takeoff, so we should have more than enough at that point. So 0.6 meters per second, slight overshoot, it should be fine. Yeah, this is absolutely okay. So once we arrive here, we'll need to do our retrograde burn, not prograde, our retrograde burn, and we're going to enter into a circular retrograde orbit. Something along the lines of this. Yeah, that looks good right there. We'll align to that node. We are currently in flight out to the moon. And we still have about 3,000 meters per second left. Looks good. If we really wanted to get spicy, we could put some sort of facility on the moon that would allow us to create fuel on the moon and refuel with that. But I don't think that's necessary for this particular step. That would be a relatively significant undertaking. We would need to land at a particular point or have some sort of a fuel ferry. all of that would be, you know, things. I don't think we need to do that right now. That is not the scope of this mission. That is like a future thing beyond Artemis, and we're not going to get into that in this series. So that's absolutely fine. We could, in theory, do something like a lunar gateway. I believe the lunar gateway plan has been scrapped, or somewhat scrapped, or it's a little bit unclear to me, but I'm pretty sure it was scrapped. So we're not going to be doing that. So we're going to tick forward here. We've got about 30 seconds, 20, 10, and mark. So about 350 meters per second to enter orbit here. Okay, that's fine. Cool. And then we're, of course, going to need to bring ourselves to a landing. So what is our thrust to weight right now? 5.44, that's pretty good. Okay. This feels like we have really low fuel amounts, but we kind of don't, in all honesty. Okay, so we're going to get this 350 meters per second burned here. So we'll have about 2,500 meters per second with which to do our demonstration, and that's absolutely okay. So at this point, we have successfully entered orbit. There we go. We have successfully entered orbit of the moon. So that is actually the first stage of our two-step contract completed. So we are going to get the payment for that. There we go. And next, we need to do our actual landing on the moon. So where do we want to land? Well, I don't really care for this demonstration where we end up landing. So I'm just going to land on the day side. And around here, we'll add in a retrograde burn. And we'll just bring this down to be about here or so. That should do. Okay. So we'll just align to that node. That's going to be 129.2 meters per second to put us onto a collision trajectory. And then we'll see from Flight Engineer what our suicide burn will look like. That should be absolutely fine, though. I don't think there's going to be any major issues there. So we'll just align for this burn. Perfect. And let's warp on forward. We can also deploy our landing struts now. It doesn't really hurt us in any meaningful way to do that. But let's just warp forward a little bit further. We can't do it while we're warping. I do think that these are super janky, no doubt about it. The rest of this, well, the landing legs are a little janky. I wish we had bigger landing legs. I think that's something we can do in KSP2. And I think that these would be better modeled in KSP2 as well. I am definitely looking forward to giving KSP2 a go now that it's hopefully somewhat less broken. So we're just going to start up this not landing burn, this descent burn, I guess we could call it, right about now. Fantastic. Okay, and we should be coming in for a landing fairly soon here. Excellent. And let's get this last little bit of horizontal speed gone. There we go. And now I want to put us at surface velocity minus. And we can see our countdown here is in about 24 minutes. That's okay. It's going to be about 600 meters per second to land. That's fine. Okay, so that seems absolutely okay. This is in about 21 minutes, so I'm going to warp to here. Cool. While we're warping, we don't have a correct countdown on our burn, but it's fine for now. Okay, we're going to come out of this warp, and we're going to realign. We're also going to extend our landing legs before I forget to do that. Excellent. And we've got about 3 minutes until our landing burn. Now, I'm not going to do the landing burn exactly. We have a lot of horizontal speed here. So actually, I want to go to horizontal velocity minus at this time. This is not the most efficient way to do this. I want to be clear about that. This is not the most efficient way, but I want to get rid of a lot of our horizontal speed here. So I'm going to start up a burn here, and we're going to get rid of horizontal speed. Just because this is not usually the most accurate unless you're coming straight down. So for the moment, I want to get rid of a lot of this. Yeah, this is going to be a fair amount of our fuel going away, but I'm not too concerned about that. We would have to remove this horizontal speed anyway, right? It is a little bit less efficient than just going for this, though. So at this point, I'm going to go to surface velocity minus. We're down to 131 meters per second here. Cool. Okay, and we can commence this burn and kill that rotation for the moment. Okay, we're just moving this marker at this point until it's about here. Yeah, this is too early for the burn, but this is mostly so that we can see our horizontal marker, although we could have just looked at this, I suppose. Okay, that's good enough. So we're going to go to surface velocity minus, and we can see we've got about 2 minutes on our countdown here. Looks good. We've still got 2 kilometers per second in this thing. This thing carries so much fuel. So much fuel. Okay, so we're just going to continue to physics warp our way on down in surface velocity minus. We've got about 1 minute on this burn. I'm going to burn a little early because I'm always paranoid about that. So now we've got about 40 seconds. 30. 20. Coming out of physics warp. I'm going to burn at about 3 seconds, I think. So we're just bringing this on down. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Commencing burn. And yes, this is going to be a little too early. That is understood. Throttling us down ever so slightly. I want this number to still be slightly decreasing. Okay, it is increasing, so I'm throttling us down further. Looking good so far. Holding at 3.4 seconds. Throttling it down again. 3.3. 3.4. Okay, throttling it down again. Cool. Just going to hold it here for now. We'll eyeball it from here. We're down to about 30 meters per second. Okay. Letting it continue to very slowly drop. I want to just put us in up here. Okay. And just gently depositing ourselves on the surface. Beautiful. We gonna tip? Nope, we're not gonna tip. Okay, so that's a successful landing. We've got about 1,500 meters per second left. So now we need to get ourselves back into orbit, and that's absolutely simple to do from here. We are going to almost certainly need some sort of a refueling. We'll see if the Orion is enough. That's the main question that I have at this point is that spare fuel that we bring over in the Orion going to be sufficient? We'll see. We will see. So 1,500 meters per second left here. 90 is off in this direction. But we actually want to go 270 if we want to be retrograde. So that'll be okay. We can absolutely do that. And let's bring this guy up. And we're just heading right on over to the 270 marker. Beautiful. And I'm going to put this in... No, don't go up. Go to kill rod. Okay. We're just going to put this right about here or so. Looks good. And we're going to push up our apoapsis height. We can see our time to apoapsis is going down right now. I'm going to retract our landing gear. There we go. And we're just targeting about 200 meters per second here. So we have burned about 500 meters per second, but we are going to see this number moving up a lot. Okay, so this is definitely getting low on the fuel count. Very low on the fuel count. But that's okay. We are at 100 right now, and 150 and 200. Okay, so we're shut down. We've got 758 meters per second left. And at this point, of course, we need to go to our apoapsis, and we need to circularize. So we'll just bring this on up. Something along the lines of this should do. Cool. 72.8 meters per second to get in there. Okay, that should be fine. The question is, are we fuel positive from an Orion, or are we going to need to bring another starship out here to refuel this at a certain point? That is the question. We would bring a standard fully fueled starship for that. And that would be absolutely okay to do. We know that that's fine, but it would be expensive. It would be very, very expensive. Let's align to our node. If the Orion is enough, then that's wonderful. But I don't know. This thing is huge. It's a lot of fuel. We might need to refuel it once. I don't think we'll need to refuel it again, but refueling it once is probably not the end of the world. Of course, the Artemis program is very expensive, and just getting our standard 200,000 payment is not huge. But we now know that landing and taking off again is about we'll call it about 2,500 meters per second. So that's reasonably fine. So we'll warp on forward. And this burn is going to be done in about 20 minutes here. Excellent. So we're lifting up nicely, of course. 180 kilometers, 190, and we are at about 200 kilometers now. We're going to commence this burn in about 50 seconds. 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay. And... oh, we don't have probe control right now. Yeah, this is good enough. We're going to call this a good enough orbit. We can't delete this maneuver node because we're control locked. I'm not actually going to do anything here. I'm just going to clear our control lock just to get rid of that, just to make it a little cleaner. So at this point, this thing is back in orbit and is fully proofed. So we need to get our next payment, which we'll absolutely do. We need all the cash we can get our hands on right now. And we're going to head back to the Space Center. At this time, it is time for Artemis 3. So what we need to do right now is get ourselves an Orion spacecraft to rendezvous up with that. And then we would land on the moon again. And then the spaceship would go, or rather the starship would go back up. It would re-rendezvous with the Orion, and then the Orion comes back, is the idea. So the question is, how much fuel, more specifically, how much Delta V is going to be in that bonus Orion tank that we know we're bringing along? That's the question. Now, in reality, this is going to require, like, I forget the number. It's like 18 or 21 or some crazy amount of Starship refuels. It's a lot. We don't have that going on here, luckily. But that did basically eliminate all of our fuel in the Starship doing that once. So the question is, how good is an SLS launch going to be on that? Now, our entire mission here, if we can find the SLS, there it is. Our entire mission here, we're going to just take this Artemis 2 variant. Our entire mission is going to only make us 200,000, which is basically the cost of the SLS itself. We knew that we would be pretty negative here financially. We'll see how that ends up going. We may have to take some form of, like, contract work later on in order to make some money there. We'll see. This program is very expensive. No doubt about that. But I think we're ready to lift off our SLS here. We have crew here, correct? Correct. Okay, so that looks good. And we'll just do this as the Artemis 3. There we go. We'll save and launch this. Now, we need to get this up into orbit, and we're probably not going to make it over to the moon this episode. But we'll see how this goes. Here is the plan. If we have at least 3,000 meters per second in the Starship, we're going to go for it. If we do not, then we'll send a refueling Starship in the middle of this mission, awkwardly. It'll be very awkward, but that's the overall plan. So we need to take this thing off, and we are out of here. Excellent. So the SLS is, of course, a very, very solid rocket, right? There's no real problem with this other than its cost. Its cost is very, very high, and that's a very real thing, too. But it's nowhere near the cost of Starship. Of course, Starship is predicated on recovering both stages, and we're not currently super capable of that. We definitely need a lot more Delta V, a lot more drag on that first stage of Starship to be able to recover it. We're kind of close, but we're definitely not there. Okay, we're at about 10-kilometer apoapsis. I'm going to take us on over and start getting some horizontal speed. So we're just going to head over to about this 45-degree marker. Will be fine for now. Getting some amount of horizontal speed here, but we still want to be punching up through the atmosphere quite a lot. So we're just going to park it about here for the moment. We're at about a 30-kilometer apoapsis. We're going to be ditching our SRBs shortly. And we're just going to hold this attitude until we have our SRBs going away, I think. Yeah. Apoapsis height of 50 kilometers now. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Goodbye, SRBs. And we're going to go to horizontal velocity up. We just need all the horizontal velocity now. Our apoapsis is plenty high. So no problem whatsoever there. We're just going to head directly over towards the horizon. And we need to get a fair amount of horizontal speed. Our first stage here is quite powerful. There's no doubt about that. If I recall correctly, it was powerful enough to basically get us to the moon previously. Now, that's not very realistic, but that is the way that this ended up working out. So we're going to be targeting an apoapsis height of about 200 here, I think. That'll be absolutely fine. We're at about 130 right now. 140. 150. Yeah, this is absolutely okay. We have a bit of an off heading here. Let's just put this on kill rot here. Okay, we're at about like 250. I overburned that, but that's okay. We're going to enter into a circularized orbit here. So right about there or so. That should be good enough. 280.4 meters per second. Okay, we can definitely at this point get rid of our launch escape system. We do not need that. And that is out of here. We should, of course, deploy our solar panels, as well as our communications. There we go. And let's just very slowly rotate our way on over to this burn point. We've got about 10 minutes, so absolutely no concerns there. Okay, and we are going to warp on forward from here. This is close enough. Fantastic. About an 8-second burn to get ourselves into orbit. We do still have about 600 meters per second left in this stage, so this stage is going to get us most of the way to the moon. Not quite all, and we'll have a little bit of fuel left over here. I do think we want to keep at least half of this fuel to return home on, but we're not going to need all of it, that's for sure. So we'll see what those delta V numbers end up looking like. But for the moment, let's warp forward a little bit further. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and mark. My fingers were on the wrong button. Okay, it's fine. So we're getting ourselves up into a proper circularized orbit here. This is close enough. And let's make our way out to the moon, where, of course, our HLS is waiting for us. So right around here or so, we get ourselves an encounter. Is this a retrograde encounter? Probably not. And we can just bring that forward a little bit and bring it on around. That's not quite retrograde there. Okay. Bringing it around to here. We want this to be a reasonably high retrograde orbit, and the inclination doesn't have to be perfect. So for the moment, this is reasonably fine. We'll do our inclination change, I think, once we arrive at the moon. That'll be okay. So targeting around 400 kilometers feels pretty good to me. That'll allow us to intercept the HLS fairly easily. We're in not quite the exact inclination we want to be, but that's fine. We can change that once we get there. So this will be 747.2 meters per second, the vast majority of which will be delivered by our first stage. So that looks good. And then, of course, we've got enough delta V to land on this, and we probably could pull that off, but I don't want to try it. That is not how this is designed to work, obviously. So let's just get into position for our heading off to the moon burn. We're going to have to wait till we're on the other side of Kerbal for sure. Okay, let's warp our way on around. And we are, of course, going to be burning off our entire first stage fuel here. We want to conserve as much fuel as we can heading in. Does this have RCS on it? We don't have any RCS thrusters on this, do we? That's okay. We can just do the orientation method. So I'm not too concerned about that for docking. If we were trying to dock up to the station, I would absolutely want RCS thrusters because I don't like turning the station, but turning the Starship makes perfect sense. So I'm okay with that. We can just come in from whatever direction. So we're going to be running out of fuel in this stage very, very shortly. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And off we go. Excellent. So the last 100 or so meters per second. And then we'll burn a little bit more of this fuel, for sure, from our maneuvers around the moon. But it's not going to be very much, to be honest. Not very much at all. So about 10 meters per second to go here, and we actually overshot this. Okay. Do we need to correct it? Kinda. 557? Yeah, let's correct it. It's only 1 meter per second. It'll be a lot more later. So let's correct this now. Let's just get into position for that. And our thrust to weight is only 1.02. I'm surprised we overshot it by that much, but whatever. Okay, so let's just bring this on down. That's good enough. Okay, so once we arrive here, of course, we're going to add a retrograde maneuver here. And we're just going to circularize that up. And we overshot that. Right about there or so. Cool. And then, of course, we will set the Starship HLS as our target. We'll need to do an inclination change, because we are coming in at a bit of a spicy inclination. And then we'll need to rendezvous with that. So that'll be absolutely okay. We'll have lots of fuel left over, but this is a Kerbal S3 tank. This is not going to fill all that much fuel there. So we might have to do a refueling mission. We will determine that after we know how much fuel this gives us. So that'll be fine. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Kentogan, Ali Lee, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.